Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, Director Coates, I want to compliment you and the members of your the community that you represent on the report that you have supplied to us. It is succinct and clear and troubling in some cases, which is what good intelligence will always be. Particularly on page 16 is an extraordinary statement about the effect of climate change on national security. The impacts of the long-term trends toward a warming climate, more air pollution, biodiversity loss, and water scarcity are likely to fuel economic and social discontent and possibly upheaval through 2018. Goes on to talk about the risk of humanitarian disasters, conflict, water and food shortage, population migration, labor shortfalls, price shocks, power outages, and a possibility of abrupt climate change. The notes indicate the current extinction rate is 100 to 1,000 times the natural extinction rate. I just want to point that out. This is clearly, as your report indicates, a serious issue of national security, is it not?
It is an issue, but it always has been an issue. What happens to the environment, floods, hurricanes, et cetera. We're seeing some intensity of that lately.
Well, this isn't talking about general environmental conditions. This is it's the past 115 years, I'm reading from your report, have been the warmest period in the history of modern civilization. The past few years have been the warmest years on record. And then it goes on to state. I would just hope that you would have the people that prepared this brief the Secretary of the EPA. Because I think this information is important. It's important to national security. We often talk about the risk of climate change in the context of environmentalism, but according to your analysis, it is also an issue that affects national security. It will increase migration patterns, conflict, famine, and the like, which is often how wars start. Another part of the report on page 7 talks about Iran and the Iran nuclear agreement, and there's an interesting phrase. It says, Iran's implementation of the JCPOA has extended the amount of time Iran would need to produce enough fissile material for a nuclear weapon from a few months to about 1 year, provided Iran continues to adhere to the deal's major provisions. Is it the judgment of the intelligence community that Iran has thus far adhered to the deal's major provisions?
Yes, and the judgment is there has been no material breach of the agreement.
And the JCPOA, I'm again reading from your report, has also enhanced the transparency of Iran's nuclear activities, mainly by fostering improved access to those nuclear facilities for the IAEA and the authorities under the additional protocol. So if the Iran agreement were abrogated, we would lose that visibility into the Iran nuclear enterprise. Is that not correct?
Well, we've built a number of capacities relative to that, even since the agreement. So to say lose that I don't think would be accurate.
Diminish?
It potentially could diminish.
I think you can do better than that. It would diminish, would it not? The IAEA would certainly not have the access that they currently have.
No, they may not. On the other hand, we have provided other means, and we've significantly upped our game in terms of our verification procedures.
In your assessment on page 18, you talk about China. Again, interesting language. It talks about China's security interests with regard to the South China Sea, the East China Sea, and Taiwan. Uses the language, it uses language of national security in those regards. Sovereignty claims East China Sea, South China Sea, and Taiwan. But then it goes on to talk about its efforts aimed at fulfilling the Belt and Road Initiative to expand China's economic reach and political influence. My question is, what is the intelligence community's assessment of what China wants? Is China are they moving toward military aggression and enlargement of their territory? Or are they looking more toward political and economic influence in the region?
It appears to be the latter. While China is modernizing its military, is increasing its spending, most of it appears to be done for a deterrence purpose rather than aggressive purpose. They have clearly have a strategy of using credit and loans to countries around the world, particularly in strategic places, and then combining it with some military capacity. South China Seas, their new base in Djibouti. We see that China is seeking, I think, to become a world power with great influence on a global basis, and they're using a number of techniques that are far more than just the typical military land grab that we see more likely with Russia rather than China.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.